Adam Schiff, the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. Congressman, it's awfully good to see you. Let me get to some good news, because apparently the National Security Advisors of the United States, Jake Sullivan, and the National Security Advisor of India have just spoken. The United States is going to be helping India. They recognize this dire situation. There are a number of ways in which they're going to do it. They're going to try to give some raw material that will help them develop their own vaccines there. The vaccine there, it's called the Covishield vaccine. They're also going to provide things like PPE, the oxygen that you saw Matt Bradley talking about, how there's a lack of oxygen supply in that country. Very much noting the urgent need for all of this: therapeutics, rapid diagnostic test kits, ventilators. I mean, that is great news. Tell me how important you think this kind of help is for a country like India, because we have to keep in mind coronavirus does not just stay within our borders, right? This is a global pandemic.
Well, that's exactly right. And look, I think it's great that our National Security Advisor is conferring with India's National Security Advisor and reaching these agreements where we will help provide some of the raw materials and precursors so that they can ramp up their production of their own vaccine, but also help provide them with ventilators or oxygen, with therapeutics. India came to our aid early in the pandemic when we were being hit really hard. And indeed, there's a very long history of the United States and India working together on vaccination programs, global vaccination programs. So there's a lot of history here. And as your correspondent so rightly pointed out, as long as the vaccine is proliferating anywhere in the globe, you're going to have it mutating. And the more that happens, the more we're at risk at home as well, because those mutations may get around the vaccinations that many Americans have already received. So we're all in this together. We have, I think, a huge humanitarian interest in helping our friends in India and around the globe, but we also have a strong self-interest as well.
Are we in this together enough to want to send some of our supply of vaccines to India? A lot of headlines lately, I'm sure you've read them, they suggest that there is a greater supply than there is demand right now. So should some go to India?
Well, I think we are reaching the point, and we could see this coming, I think, weeks ago, where the problem in the United States would no longer be the supply of vaccines, but rather people's hesitancy about getting vaccinated. Now, I think that the president has been very prudent to make sure that we have an adequate supply for all Americans. As we've seen, there were problems with J&J. That has now been approved once again. But we want to make sure that we protect our own citizens. But I think we are at the point now, because of the hesitancy, where we really have to ramp up our efforts to educate people. But we're also in a position to do more to help our neighbors in Canada and Mexico, and help others around the world, including in India.
Absolutely. Do you find vaccine hesitancy, very quickly, sir, to be a problem of national security concern?
Well, it certainly poses a very real threat to American lives. And I knew this was going to be a problem when I visited some of the vaccination sites in my district, including at Kaiser, and was informed that 25% of their own medical personnel was reluctant to get the vaccine. If 25% of medical personnel are going to be hesitant, then the population at large is going to have even greater hesitancy. And we really need to get that herd immunity in the United States to stop the mutation of the virus. So this is a supreme challenge. It's one we can overcome, but it's going to mean that we all need to push out good information.
Yeah. Let's talk about what happened yesterday when the president became the first U.S. president to acknowledge the killing of more than 1 million Armenians by Ottoman Turks more than a century ago, classifying it as genocide. Earlier this week on the floor of the House, you delivered an open letter to the president calling on him to do just this. And for our viewers who may not know the details beyond just these horrific numbers, tell us why this is significant.
Well, the facts of the history are very plain. In the first genocide of the last century, the Ottoman Empire wiped out 1.5 million Armenian men, women, and children. Our unwillingness to recognize that genocide, I think, really diminishes our standing as a leader on human rights. But it also tells the perpetrators of other potential genocides or other genocides going on that the United States won't have the fortitude to stand up to them. So it's important historically. It's certainly important for so many Armenians around the world who have seen their pain and their loss denied. But it's also very important today, even while Armenians in Artsakh and in Armenia itself fear there could be another genocide after the war that was waged on them recently by Turkey and Azerbaijan.
But as you're well aware, Turkey's foreign ministry has summoned the U.S. ambassador in Ankara to protest the decision. What do you think the impact could be to the U.S. relationship with Turkey?
Well, so far, I have to say it's been a pretty muted reaction by Turkey. And I think Turkey understands that it needs the United States more than the United States needs Turkey. But nonetheless, we've seen this drift of Turkey away from the West, a drift towards Russia. They're buying air defense systems from Russia that are incompatible with Turkey's NATO obligations. Turkey is increasingly sidling up to Iran. And Erdogan is becoming very much the autocrat, moving away from democracy. Turkey is now the leading jailer of journalists in the world. So we've seen this disturbing drift by Turkey already. And I think the president concluded quite rightly that if the U.S.-Turkish relationship depends on our being complicit in a campaign of genocide denial, it can't be much of a relationship to begin with.
You know, you mentioned Russia. I'd like to talk with you about Moscow having ordered its troops to withdraw from the border with Ukraine after that massive military buildup. What do you make of the show of force that was put on with these drills? Do you think it was threatening? Was it meant to be threatening? Was it meant to be a test on how President Biden would respond?
I think it was meant for exactly those purposes. There was a question while they were doing it, were they going to invade Ukraine again? It appears they're not invading Ukraine, at least not at the moment. But coming so early in the Biden presidency, I think this was a shot across the bow to say, United States, this is our sphere of influence. This is our backyard. You need to stay out. We're prepared to do whatever we need to do to vindicate our interests in the region. Including remaking the maps of Europe by war for the first time since World War II. And so I think it was a powerful message that Putin was trying to send. And Joe Biden had his own powerful message to send back in the conversations he's had with Putin, pushing back hard on Ukraine, pushing back hard on Russian meddling in our elections, pushing back hard on the poisoning of Russian opposition leaders like Alexei Navalny. The United States made it clear to Putin that we're not going to be essentially in the thrall of the Kremlin dictator anymore the way the last administration had been.
All right. Well, I appreciate the powerful messages that you send on this show, Congressman Adam Schiff. Thank you so much, sir.